This copyrighted telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or used in any form without the authorized written consent of NASCAR Broadcasting. NASCAR would like to thank all of our loyal fans for your continued support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.
Trucks that are on site that are trying to make it into the 36 truck field for the race on Friday. So right now we're seeing some 2, 3, 4 truck draft partners out on the racetrack.
Rick, see that 15 truck leading that pack there? That's our broadcast partner, Michael Waltrip, who's normally up here with us, and he's said, well, I'm gonna trade in my microphone for a steering wheel, and he's doing a great job out here running some fast laps.
Travis Kvapil in the 5 on the inside. There's a familiar name to this series, coming back and will run full time. Now earlier today, right when we started this first practice, was the only incident that we've seen on the racetrack, and it's Kyle Busch in the 18 and Eric Almirola in the 51, and Almirola goes around.
Just a situation where the bumpers really didn't line up. They were trying to do what we've seen done all week long with the 2 cars or 2 vehicles hooking up, and unfortunately for Eric, probably going to lead itself to a backup truck.
Go back to the garage and Ray Dunlap.
Well, Rick, this is the only incident that we really had in this practice session when Eric Almirola, Kyle Busch got hooked up trying to do a 2-truck tandem. Didn't quite work out. Unfortunately, Eric Almirola into the outside wall. Backup truck had to be unloaded. There's Eric Almirola talking to Kyle Busch about it. Kyle came right on the radio and said, man, I'm sure didn't mean to do that. They were trying to make that work, and unfortunately it didn't work for him. There's Eric jumping into backup truck. I don't think they're quite ready yet. He's probably going to adjust his seat belts or make.
Cole Witt on the racetrack in the 60. He's currently 5th quick on the charts.
See, Red Bull sponsorship up on board. Cole Witt ran the K&N Pro Series East Division last year. Didn't get to victory lane, but I think he had 3 runner-up finishes, but very impressive in his NASCAR debut last season, Krista.
Yeah, and Phil, I remember we were talking about this young man a lot at the end of last year here in the Truck Series and in the Nationwide Series. Just 19 years old, a California native. There you see Cole Witt bringing his truck around into the garage. The plan on this run was to scuff some tires and then be done with this practice. We'll see if that's what they indeed do.
Well, that with our qualifying at 6:30. Now here in our first practice, early on in the first 10 minutes, we had our only incident.
Yeah, Kyle Busch and Eric Almirola were hooked up trying to do the 2-truck tandem, and unfortunately, Kyle said they moved up the racetrack, and he got to the left side of the rear bumper of the 51 truck and turned him around, much like we saw in a couple instances in the Bud Shootout with Michael Waltrip and another one with Kyle and Mark Martin. So Tony Stewart, I think, and Michael were involved in that one incident. So
they talked it out. How about this? A very close call with this crew.
Coming off turn number 4. See, Matt Crafton pulls right up in front of Ricky Carmichael because the 46 truck of Craig Ghost was slowing there in turn 4. So important to use your hand signals and let somebody know behind you. They're running so close together. The closure rate is so faster. And when you back off these trucks, Rick, it's like throwing an anchor off because of the high roof and the high windshield of these trucks. So you want to make sure you let the people know behind you what you're going to do.
Just under 90 seconds remaining in this practice. Let's go back to the garage and Ray Dunlap.
They've had a change. Came here Saturday night, and they ran the Bud Shootout one way. NASCAR came along after a couple of days off there to think about it. They reduced the plate size, changed the opening into the grill. So there's so many unknowns. Even going into these 150s, that's what's going to make today's race so important, is working on your stuff, getting ready for the 500 on Sunday.
And not to mention, you know, we have 48 Cup cars here trying for the 43 spots. That means 5 are going to go home. So extra important this afternoon for those guys that have to qualify their way in.
Phil, you're exactly right. There were a bunch of, you know, like 7 or 8 guys that had pretty sleepless night, worrying about whether they were going to get in this field or not.
Well, in a similar setting for the guys that, you know, make their living in the Camping World Truck Series, there's obviously only 11 spots, and we've got 21 guys fighting for those 11 spots. So they're doing everything they can to figure out where do we get the most possible speed we can get to be in the race tomorrow night.
And remember, this is the biggest field we've had since 2004 at any Camping World Truck Series race. So I think this is a very healthy series right now. We have great 4-truck team coming right now from Kevin Harvick, and we have obviously 4 trucks from Jermaine. And really a lot of nice buzz going on about the Truck Series.
Well, you know one thing about Daytona, and you know this, Phil, everybody that's here spent everything they had to get ready for here. This is what makes Daytona so special. I don't care if you're on a truck, a Nationwide Car Cup. This is the best when they're at their best.
Yeah.
So when you win down here, you beating these guys right off the top when everything is perfect. They got the best truck they've ever had. They got the best engine. Everybody comes here prepared better than any other race.
And DW mentioned the best. Yesterday, Eric Almirola had his best truck in that first practice, and then problems. They end up wrecking it, having to go to the backup. Ray, what's going on with that team?
Well, they're working on the truck down here on the backup truck, and as you can see at the very front, they are working on some air intake and also on some clearance on the splitter. Eric said that time through 3 and 4, he really drug the splitter on the front, so they may make an adjustment on the front jack bolts or maybe even a shock change up here to try to get that front of the truck up just a little bit through the center of the corner. But overall, he said he was pretty pleased with the way it drafted. Yesterday, Doug George told me that he didn't think this truck would be anywhere near as good as their primary. Eric said, not that bad.
I was swinging by the garage earlier, and I talked to Doug George, and he said, well, I think we're bringing a knife to a gunfight.
Well, but you know what? I'm glad to hear Eric say that, because you know you can get your head, you can just drop your head and say we're done. I know we might as well load up and go home.
Yeah.
Or you can take what you got, work on it, make it as good as you can make it, and get the most out of it. So the driver is the cheerleader of the team.
Sure.
The driver walks around with his head down in gloom and doom. That's the way the team's going to feel. If the driver says, don't worry, boys, we'll get it back. We'll get them. We'll get them. That makes a huge difference on a race team.
And DW, how many times have we seen a backup car or truck perform admirably and even end up in victory lane?
I can't remember. I think it was Kenny Schrader down here back in the 80s. He wrecked his car in a qualifying race, got his backup car out. Guess what? It was a short track car. And guess what? He started that race and drove straight to the front. You really want down here you would like to have 2 different vehicles to race. You'd like to have one that has no drag and no downforce and really slick through the wind. That would be a fast car by itself or a truck. Then you want one in the race that's got a little more downforce. That way it'll get down in the track, handle a little bit better. So sometimes when you wreck that old slicked up machine that you had in the wind tunnel 50 times, get that backup car out. It's got a little drag on, a little more downforce. That thing races pretty darn good.
It might be 1/10 of a second slower than another car, maybe 2/10 of a second, but it's going to drive so much better. At the end of the day, you're going to be way better off. But again, NASCAR makes you choose one or the other. When you come here, you have to bring whichever one you think's best.
We got 2 ladies in the top 5 right now. Jennifer Jo Cobb, 4th quick. Johanna Long is 5th quick.
I like Johanna. I tell you, every time she does an interview, you know, she won the Snowball Derby. Every time she does an interview, I can just hear her. She is a confident young lady.
Mm-hmm. And you got to have that confidence. We talked about, you know, not getting down. Remember, at this racetrack, Bobby Hamilton won this race starting 36th.
Mm-hmm.
The furthest position back, and he won the race.
And rode around at the back for most of the race.
Right.
That was his plan. When time came to go, he went. And you mentioned Johanna Long winning the Snowball Derby. That's one of the biggest short track races we have in the country here. Well over 100 cars show up for that race. She beat the best of the best at their own game.
That's it. And of course, that's her home track. But nonetheless, she did it. She did it, and that's the main thing. And that's really impressive.
He was a champion last year.
I think I don't know why Todd wouldn't do it, because that's a lock. But one thing you remember about those Germain trucks, Todd's particularly, they don't always qualify all that fast. Sometimes they're mid-packers, and maybe they don't want to have to fight that battle.
Might be some nervous times then for a couple trucks in the Germain stable. As we wind down at final practice. Again, problems for the 33 of Ron Hornaday. Smoke rolling out from underneath that truck.
Speaking of Ron Hornaday.
I wonder what the hell happened there.
That's in the engine compartment. You see the smoke coming out from the wheel well on the left front. And that will end our final practice. Not the way the 4-time champion wanted to end final practice.
Just talking about it.
But tickled to death that if it's going to happen, it happened just then. Now they can get a fresh motor in there for qualifying this evening. You know, if it would have happened in qualifying, you know, that would have been okay too, even though he would have had to take a provisional, past champion provisional. But boy, there's no more practice. They're only going to get about 3 more laps in this practice session, qualifying this evening before the race time.
Let's go down to Ray Dunlap.
This copyrighted telecast may not be reproduced, retransmitted, or used in any form without the authorized written consent of NASCAR Broadcasting. NASCAR would like to thank all of our loyal fans for your continued support, and we hope you enjoyed today's broadcast.